should I hide my Jewish identity when going to inappropriate places?
This question, I think, is one of the root causes of a lot of cognitive dissonance by teenagers, where the struggle becomes, first and foremost, there's a certain disconnection to Yiddishkeit and feeling their sense of purpose through Yiddishkeit. And as a result, they naturally they gravitate towards other things, other forms of behavior, things where they feel more accepted, get more validation, etc. And naturally, gradually, there's a progression of where the clothing, the identifying marker, so to speak, of their Judaism has to also be changed. And for a lot of teenagers, whether it's boys or girls, this cognitive dissonance plays on them for a long time. And at one point, they make a decision, this is me, and therefore I'm going to drop my beard or my yarmulke, my tznius, or whatever it may be, to feel more, to fit into their crowd, the people they have grown to appreciate, or to announce to the world, so to speak, that this is who I am. And then there's the factors that once a person has allowed themselves to enter certain venues like bars or other places that perhaps they shouldn't be, halachically they shouldn't be, and it feels very strange to walk around with a yarmulke in a location that is the complete antithesis of that idea of wearing a yarmulke, and that creates a further struggle within their mind, and the natural gravitation again is to let go of these things. So I want to give a perspective. I don't know if this is an answer, but I do want to give a perspective. The Gemara on the one hand does tell us that if a person is in a very deep state of temptation, where they feel that they won't be able to overcome their temptation, they should dress in black and go to another place, a place where people don't know them, etc. And from the simple wording of the Gemara seems to be saying that the person should actually allow themselves to sin. There is a debate in the Rishonim as to whether that's what the Gemara means, or on the contrary, the Gemara means that once a person lets themselves let go to the point where they're wearing different clothing, completely changing their external identity, that will awaken the person and make the person feel like, hey, what's going on here? This is not me. And that itself will give the person the strength to be able to overcome the temptation and have the ability to overcome the impulse. This, however, does not apply nowadays. Nowadays, most case scenarios, if a person pushes the boundaries and tries to go far or beyond what they're being nurtured to do, is just going to lead to further regression in terms of their feeling close and their sense of connection. It doesn't work nowadays to say, let them fall, and because they're going to fall and hit rock bottom, they're eventually going to bounce back up. Because today there's no real rock bottom. There's so much out there in the world that we could just keep on pushing and pushing, and boundaries could be broken more and more to the point that there's where you thought you would never go, you end up going. As the Ramban explains this in his commentary to Torah, that a person, once they allow the temptation to take them over, they go to places that they never thought or even had any desire for initially. So the attitude nowadays is not, let's drop everything in order to try to see the truth. Or let's drop everything now because I'm not at a point where I feel comfortable with this, and therefore I'd rather not have the struggle, the cognitive dissonance, the guilt of wearing this type of clothing and presenting myself in a certain way and doing everything else. I think that the perspective has to be, is the very fact that you're asking this question means that there is a spark that's there. There is a sense of truth that you identify with. The very fact someone is not just going to take off their yarmulke and throw it off, unless they're angry at God or angry at their parents, angry at Judaism or religion. In most case scenarios, that's itself the indication that there's a spark of life there. There's a spark of the Jewish connection. So instead of taking it off and therefore rejecting that spark and suppressing that element of yourself, embrace it, discuss it with yourself, with others. Try to nurture that spark to the point that you don't have to feel that you need to validate yourself or feel good about yourself by taking off the yarmulke or going to places that you shouldn't be going, or wearing clothing that is not particularly tznius. In other words, if we could identify the root of the problem, realizing what's driving this need, this sense of validation perhaps, acceptance, identity, etc., and at the same time recognize that the fact that I'm bothered by the fact that I'm wearing certain clothing that seems to be antithesis to what I feel, that itself is the spark that you want to nurture. That's the flame you want to fan. That's the nitzitz elokei, perhaps the nitzitz elokus that we all experience. And what happens is we have a window of opportunity where we can either shut it down, suppress it, and then not feel the guilt and shame, at least consciously, and then go down the path of usually more negativity, destruction. And if we do hit rock bottom, we feel like we can never return anyway, so we just keep on going further. Or on the contrary, catch that moment of opportunity, see what it really is, feel the struggle, feel the cognitive dissonance, identify with the fact that you do feel close to your Judaism, identify the fact that the yarmulke does mean something to you, tznius is something meaningful to you. You may not fully understand why, you don't appreciate yourself in relation to it, but that's something to nurture, that's something to ask about, that's something to explore, versus rejecting, suppressing, which always leads to negativity. So the answer, I would say, is the perspective one should have. Why do I feel the urge? I'm not at a place where I appreciate religion. It's not a place where I appreciate myself. I need to work on myself. I need to work on who I am and why I need these types of other validations, or I'm not happy with my Jewishness. But more importantly, the recognition of the fact that the very fact you want to take off the yarmulke, you want to not dress tznius, you want to take off your beard, you want to take off all those markers of you being Jewish, is in itself what you should be working with. That is the cry from within. It's maybe somewhat subconscious because you don't fully appreciate it. You just see it as a burden and a frustration, but really it's actually speaking to you on a deep level saying, this is really you. This is what you really want to do. But you feel trapped by the external pressures, by the people that make you feel that you should be different, or that you get accepted from them by being different, or the sense of pleasure, the deep seeking of pleasure that you don't get from religion at this point. And there you could start developing yourself. And there's no greater pleasure, there's no greater sense of satisfaction, there's no greater sense of positive flow when you bring out, you explore your inner world and your inner self. So nurture that question, deal with it openly. Don't reject, don't suppress. And I think that the answer would come out in each individual's person's mind is that I want to stay with this to constantly sense that struggle, because eventually I know I want to come back.